another of that is it was also used in a lecture in Chulalongkorn University. So the professor said that the students chose it to show how you portray nonfiction in comics. And again, it's another high honor because the other comics that they chose as an example included like Mouse.
Wow.
Exactly. Right. Persepolis. So we're like,
Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. I am with Comics by Imagination. Olan Amago and Bambi Eloriaga Amago. How are you guys?
yeah, we're good. Yes, thanks for having us.
We're doing great.
Doing great? Doing great naman.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to ask the first thing that I ask everyone on the show, which is why do you love comics?
Well, why do I love comics? Because it's the mixture of text and images that, there's a perfect balance to it. Like you can have great art, but if the story is not so great, readers are not going to stick around, So on the other hand, if the story is great and it's being ini-enhance siya ng art na, parang there's a beauty in the balance for me that attracts me to reading it.
And sometimes the story can be great, but if the art is bad, you don't know if it's great.
Exactly. Right, exactly.
Kulang.
It goes both ways.
I was leaning towards the art more. So for me, it's more on I'm easily grabbed by visuals, by very beautiful lines, very beautiful colors. The story, it became important to me when I got a little bit older now. When I started to really appreciate understanding the story and the nuances of each characters. But before it helped, I started like, oh wow, this is a very nice artwork. I really like it. And besides, I really like copying it. So
So
mostly yeah.
you can tell that one of you is more of a writer and the other one is more of an artist.
Exactly.
Indeed,
Because
indeed.
my approach or my way of viewing it is, yes, I'm first attracted by the art, of course. Good cover, good art. But if it doesn't have a good story, I'm not gonna stick around for it.
Okay.
A story that hooks me.
Sige. Pakiligin natin yung mga tao. How did you guys meet?
Well,
Was it through comics?
It was a bit.
I guess it's through comics, but it's not anything exciting. It's a work thing. So we used to both work for Questor, the Ultimate Anime magazine. So mga batang 90s and early 2000s would be familiar with it. So it was an anime magazine that featured the anime that was being shown on Channel 7 GMA at the time, like Ghost Fighter, Slam Dunk. So it was a features magazine, but later on, our boss, the publisher, decided to have manga content. So we started developing original manga for the stories. And so he was hired to be the illustrator for one of the manga. Later on, there was a spin-off publication, a sister publication called Custer Extreme Manga Mania that was pure original manga. And he worked on one of the titles there.
Okay.
So yeah, basically, long story short, we met at work.
We met at work, yeah.
And then nag-develop.
Yes.
Yes. I think we got to know each other better when we first worked on our first original manga for Seven Seas.
When Quester closed, when the magazine closed, we were working freelance for Seven Seas Entertainment, based in LA. So
Nice.
before they started to get licensed manga, they went into what used to be called OEL, Original English Language Manga. So we worked on one of the OEL titles that they had, Moonlight Meow.
Okay.
It's about
I think he's looking for something.
I'm
yeah,
looking
he's
for the book.
Are you looking for the book?
I'm trying to look for the book because I think it's very hard to
find it.
right
Yeah.
now. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to look for the book. It's probably
There-
one
there-
of, in
What
one
you
of the
what you don't
bookshelves.
see is there's a pile of
Books.
there's a pile of books beside us.
Same. Relatable. Okay. When did you
Yep.
realize you wanted to make comics? And
When-
who was it? Was it a particular comic? Was it a particular writer, artist, or what?
For me, it was when I was reading the Uncanny X-Men. I know it wasn't. It didn't have a Jim Lee's X-Men. When I
Mm.
first read it,
X-Men.
yeah,
Hindi uncanny.
Yeah.
X-Men number
yeah,
one with the
X-Men
5
number
covers.
with the five
Yeah.
covers, yeah. It's like what I was saying earlier, I'm really easily attracted to beautiful art, and it was kind of revolutionary in that era in the 90s. That I mean, the other and the older art. I mean, it was good, but for me, the high techiness of Jim Lee's art really drew me in. And then that's when the time I tried to copy his work, and then I asked my cousin if they, and that's the time when I realized maybe I can try to work on comics on my own. I asked my cousin before. He was he liked writing stories, but with it never really flew off.
Okay. So it was Jim Lee.
Jim Lee for me, yeah.
It was Jim Lee. What about you, Bambi?
Yeah, again, you're gonna see the writer-artist contrast because same superhero team X-Men, but it was Chris Claremont that his stories at the time. So I was in high school, and then I would borrow comics from my sister's ex-boyfriend who was in college at the time, and one of the titles was the X-Men, and so it was Chris Claremont's run, and I was like, because before that, I was familiar with Superman, Batman, of course, but yung Justice League 80s cartoons. So I
Super
was blown away.
Friends.
Super Friends, di ba? So I was blown away na, ganito pala yung comics. The characters are totally relatable. They're superheroes, but they have everyday problems. They're facing discrimination, stuff like that. So, and then yung Chris Claremont run was basically, it made me want to work when I was in high school. Like my goal in life was to either work for Marvel or work for Disney.
Okay. This is a very important question that I am about to ask the two of you now. Who is your favorite X-Man?
Cyclops for me, of course.
Wait, why? Why Cyclops?
He's so cool, man. He has this Ray-Ban. He's the leader of the X-Men, of course. And then when he removes his glasses, he has this uncontrollable weapon that vaporizes everyone. The only thing that it doesn't vaporize is his glasses, I guess.
Ruby Quartz.
And his
Yeah.
girlfriend. Okay. Bambi, who's your favorite X-Man?
Brother and
Oh yeah, and
everybody.
All right, everyone he's related to.
Summers.
yes.
Everyone he's related to is invulnerable to his stuff.
The Summers gene. My favorite is the Archangel when Warren became the Archangel because it was such a concept for me to be a horseman of apocalypse, and it was just so cool to have wings, but they're made of blades. So he became like the lame member with, just looking like an angel with feathers, and he became something so cool. So that turning point for me was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And both those characters are in love with Jean Grey, as is half that cast. Okay, so okay. Let's talk about your award-winning comic. Doobiedoo asks. If you want to tell me
Yeah.
how what triggered it, and when you decided to make it, because I assume like it must have not been. Sige, I'll get to my question later, but just tell me what triggered it first.
So it's biography. It's nonfiction. It's based on our experiences with our son, who is on the autism spectrum. Before he was diagnosed, he went through a few. I don't want to say discrimination because it's not really discrimination. It's more like he was treated differently because the people involved weren't equipped to handle uh, these types of individuals. It was a mainstream school, so they aren't really trained to handle him. So, and also, we also didn't know immediately that he was, different
Yeah.
from other kids. So because of that, we wanted to show that far from what we usually see on TV and in the movies, the stereotypical portrayal of people with autism, that it's actually a spectrum. And the reason why we and his teachers and the other people involved with his negative experiences, the reason why we reacted to him at first like that is because of we didn't know, we didn't understand. So if we didn't understand, I consider myself a well-read person, a person who watches a lot of movies, and so if someone like me, not to make myself higher than others, but if someone like me who reads anything and everything was not immediately familiar with it, what more other people, right? So the aim of the comic is really to spread awareness and break stereotypes, and to also show people how do you act if you meet someone like this, because that's basically what happened to our son. They didn't know what do we do with this kid, why is he acting so differently from everybody else. So what do you have to do, because um I believe that at least once in a typical person's life, you would at least meet at least one person with autism. Because a lot of people, I'm sure there are a lot of people walking around undiagnosed,
Yeah.
especially in our countries, because it's hard to recognize it firsthand if you don't know, because
Plus,
that
there's the stigma in our country, no? Like
exactly.
Mhm.
Because yes, exactly. Because sometimes a parent's reaction would be if you get a diagnosis like that, a parent's reaction would be like to hide it from everybody else because they think it's a disease, it's an abnormality. So we basically wanted to break those kinds of trains of thought, those kinds of stereotypes that went along with the label.
yeah. Olan, do you have anything to add to how that was, how it came
Yeah,
about?
adding a little bit to what Bambi was saying regarding dun sa knowledge and yung ano ng current society natin. Ayun nga, I guess dun din sa way of thinking and understanding ng mga older generations natin. Like my parents for one, when we first try to explain uh, this no discovery, they really can't believe, really he doesn't seem that way. That's the first, that's
How is he autistic?
how is he
Bakit?
autistic,
Bakit?
is that there's nothing
Like
really wrong.
challenging the diagnosis because he if you meet him, he seems like a typical kid.
Yeah. No, it's just, they're just children. They will grow old. They will learn.
It's a phase.
Yeah, it's a
Exactly,
phase.
yes.
True.
And it's not just in our society. It's not, or maybe also in other countries.
Mm.
It's not just the child who's judged. It's actually also the parents, because they will start to say, "Ay, kulang lang sa palo yan."
Yeah.
It's like you're a bad parent, kaya ganyan yan. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with him. He's spoiled.
Mm.
He doesn't get spanked. He doesn't get punished. He gets everything he wants. Parang, like, even parents get judged.
Mm.
People are so dumb. That's my takeaway. People are so dumb. When it's invisible, right?
That's why it's invisible. Yeah.
Mm.
That's why we came out with the comic, in the hopes that it reaches different kinds of readers, even those who don't read comics.
Mm.
So it's accessible, and hopefully it will
Did it
make
take
people more learn. Yeah.
did it take you guys a while to come to terms with the diagnosis?
Mm,
For me,
for him, yes. For me, not really, because it took actually that diagnosis took about like 4 years. So in that 4 years, I never stopped, Googling and researching. And so as the 4 years were, marching by, I was having already an idea in my mind of what his diagnosis was. So by the time that it was formalized, so I was more or less
You were ready.
I knew it already, but my take here is, you will see that there's a scene where the mom is crying. It's not because that she thought that the kid had a disease or something was wrong. It's more like I was sad because knowing how society treats people like them.
Yeah.
So I knew that he was going to have a hard time because of how they would be treated after
Well,
getting labeled.
Olan, can you talk about how you came to terms with it? Because you said it took you a while.
well, since Bambi did all the researching, maybe that's the time that I realized. And then she tried to explain everything. For me, because I'm not really a reader, and it takes a while for me to understand things. And as Bambi was explaining, it was through her research that she tried to explain everything to me, and then that was the time that I realized, okay. But again, there was the fear, but she helped me. Because I was her first patient regarding these things. So
Who
she
better than to test
really
test it all?
she really helped a lot, I guess, in making me understand the situation. And that's the time I realized, I really get her fears, because before that was also part of me, that why are you so worried? Why are you so, let's just help him like that. Like, let's just guide him. But as time goes by, and then as we experience more, and then she tries to explain more to me again, that's the time that I really got to understand the situation that we were in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. I'm gonna ask this. I know, Olan, you have many art styles. So you use a different art style for Carnal Tales. You use a different art style for, Diwata Comics. You use a different art style for this. You're more cartoony in this one. What makes the cartooniness more appropriate for this particular book?
Like what you were saying, I try to bagay the style for each different genre. For this one, since we were talking about, we were trying to, formulate something na ang target talaga namin is to get it to reach as much person as possible. And since yun nga, the main topic was about our son, our main target was also the children who we try to teach, I guess, at an earlier age to understand that they have classmates like this. And they are the ones who are more, I guess, accepting than the ones who are older.
Yeah.
So,
we
I
wanted
chose
all ages.
an all ages kind of art style for this, which is, I guess, more in line of what I really want to draw because I'm more influenced by anime. And before I did this, actually, I tried realistic
Yeah.
and
A more realistic
a
approach.
more realistic approach. But to explain a little bit background, actually, I was real at the first part, even before this was pitched. I was really hesitant in actually making the book. I was trying to convince mommy, why should we? Let's not, because it's so
It's our son's
private.
life.
Oh yeah, it was.
We wanted it to remain
Mm.
private.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so the first obstacle actually in telling the story is actually getting over his hesitation to making the story public.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
it's
ask about that.
different.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. How long did
Yeah.
that take you guys to decide that?
Well, for me, after I have read the whole manuscript already, because there was a part of that manuscript because
See, he was hesitant, but I just went on and wrote everything anyway.
So from the start, Bambi, you knew you wanted to make this a comic.
Yes, because precisely because I didn't want other kids to go through what my kid went through, and I wanted to help. I right away I saw the importance of the work, not to like in Tagalog to say buhat yung sariling bangko.
Yeah.
Not to but I recognize the importance of this kind of work, especially in our country where there's in some shows and in some there's still the butt of jokes, right?
Yeah.
So people make fun of them, not just persons with autism but persons with disability in general. They're still the butt of jokes in
People with any
our show.
differences.
Exactly, right? Like, even if you have dark skin or you're a little overweight, you're the butt of jokes, and that really shouldn't be. So I saw the importance of the work, not just for persons with autism, but yes, everyone who is othered. So so I got over my reservation. I got over my reservations of publicizing our story, our experiences, because I want to break these stereotypes, in whatever way I can. It just so
Yeah.
happens that making comic books is what we do. So so
And how long did
Yeah.
it take you to convince Olan?
Well, she really didn't need convincing actually. Well, after she asked me to read the whole manuscript, there was that little part there that I really the part of the story. It was about that a class activity that I really wasn't aware na
that it happened.
it actually happened. Those were those were the words that the the teacher said to our son, and then that's the time that okay, I'm on this. I'll help you build this. At first, maybe it was because I was annoyed. Actually, to be honest, I was and I was really
Like a revenge, I guess.
but as I was doing the script, it faded away.
Yeah. It became cathartic for us, and actually we have to credit Paula because when we
Lojeras.
started,
Yeah.
yes, Paulo Heras, our publisher our publisher at Comiket.
Mhm.
When we did this, the events portrayed in the book, they were fresh. They just happened. So we were coming from a very emotional place, anger, sadness, So, and then we pitched it to Pick Off, and it got selected. It's one of the official selection. And Paulo came in as the editor. So he tempered a little of the emotions
Mhm.
that were like, not too bitter, not too angry.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I think that's what's so great about Paulo, though. Is like
yeah,
he understands the importance of different voices.
yes, exactly. He's not gonna tell you what to write, but he'll point you to the correct direction.
Mhm.
He's not overbearing at all. He'll just
Yeah.
give you the directions that you need so that you can tell the story
In your own
in your own words and in the best way that you can.
Mhm.
And I really like how, Comic Cat's whole publishing line, there, no two books are the same.
Exactly,
Indeed,
right,
yeah.
right. There's a period piece, there's a superhero, there's nonfiction, there's young adult.
Mhm.
Yeah. Getting back to the art style, I think it works really well because it also looks like an instructional manual or an educational, diba? Or an educational comic that
Right.
you could show in schools. And as I understand it, it has
Yeah.
been used by educators. So can you talk a
Yep.
little bit about that experience?
Yes, we have been invited. Well, I have been invited to talk to UP, University of the Philippines, to talk about the comics medium and how autism is portrayed in the comics medium. And then later on, the professor who interviewed me actually still uses the instructional part of the book for his class because it's about doing proper research. So that's the focus of his lectures. We've also been invited to
That must have been something
Chulalongkorn.
you did not expect to happen
No,
when you made the book.
definitely, and it's like wow, because it's under the School of Library and Information Sciences, and it's a great honor to say that we're using your book to teach the students how to find information properly, how to research, and I'm not a researcher myself, so that's high praise coming from them. And then we were also invited by Chulalongkorn University, that's in Thailand, to represent the the Filipino comics community, particularly because the topic is nonfiction.
Mhm.
So there were other countries that were there, Taiwan and India. So they chose Doobiedoo as an example of how nonfiction is handled in comics in the Philippines. And yes, and then another of that is it was also used in a lecture in Chulalongkorn University. So the professor said that the students chose it to show how you portray nonfiction in comics. And again, it's another high honor because the other comics that they chose as an example included like Mouse.
Wow.
Exactly, right? Persepolis. So we're like,
That is some good company to be in.
exactly. We're like, what? So I actually asked him, can you send me screen caps of the lecture? Just so I can show it. So I can, just to know that it's real. Because, alongside all of this, wow, great work.
Those two are objectively two of the greatest comics of all time.
Exactly.
So congratulations.
She's been working overtime.
Look, you draw, so that takes up more time, okay?
It's more on more on just technique lang. But more of the research and getting it out there, it's all on her.
How
Yeah.
how do you two work together? Like how tight is the script? Do you look over his shoulder while he's drawing?
Oh yes, I do.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
You do?
That's a blessing and a curse, actually. It's a blessing because you can easily ask for her opinion. Oh, what do you want?
Clarification,
Clarifications. And then it's just, hey, what do I do with this? What is your here? But the curse side is she knows when you're not doing this.
When he goes off script,
When,
but
I do most of the time go off script and then I try to explain, but sometimes she accepts it most of the time because it's already drawn. and but I guess if it really doesn't work, it's I'm okay naman to if it's not really in her vision.
it's more collaborative.
Yeah, it's more collaborative.
I actually write it in screenplay format because I recognize that, while I am the screenplay writer, he would be the director.
Yeah.
So I find that it's a more collaborative process that way. If I just describe the scene in general, and then he would be, in charge of breaking it down into panels, how the scene is broken down into panels, into pages.
So you don't
sometimes-
you're not in charge of the page turns.
No, he.
Olan, you're in charge
That's
of the
all.
page turns.
That's all
Okay.
him. That's all him. Yeah.
Before I try when for a new project. For Doobiedoo, I only did an thumbnailing for the first 30 pages. And then afterwards, I got the hang of it. I understood now what she wants. And she can see that, okay, you understand. After that, it's more on per page. Okay, I'll show her. This is a line work or a sketch of the page, and then and then she will okay, that's good. And then more or less, because when I work, it's more on experimental for every page. It's more on there's no plan. I I mean when I work on pages, I see it when I'm drawing it as I draw it.
You draw
So-
panel 1, then you draw panel 2, then you draw panel 3. Are you
Well,
serious?
Not necessarily. I draw thumbnails where I organize them, and then I just like this is a person here, but more of the colors, more of the finishing, everything is experimental until she approves it. I change it, I can change it. That's why I think it's giving me a hard time working with other people if there is another colorist, because sometimes I see something I want to change in the line art. I do it when I'm already, and even in the stage of when I'm coloring it already. So yun, I experiment and experiment per page. Usually that's what takes it longer than
You prefer doing the whole thing.
Yes, I think I prefer doing the whole thing by myself.
Okay. Yeah. So, what's the reception been like for the book? Aside from, everything we talked about so far.
Academe.
Yeah, so like from fans, from
Right.
critics, yeah.
Yeah, it's been positive. So it's been positively reviewed. It's been featured on magazines like Esquire, newspapers like The Inquirer and Manila Bulletin. Comic book critics have positively reviewed it. We've been getting, the most memorable feedback for us actually is from the fans,
Yeah.
because we're happy that, even non-comic book readers are picking it up. of course, there are parents who say, "Oh, it's very helpful because I went through the same thing," you know, and even parents who have children who are not autistic, they said that, okay, I understand that there are children like this, and how do I teach my son, my daughter, how to interact with them, and so, but pretty much you don't have to teach children how to, they it's like instinctively they know, and they don't really care that someone else is different. Like there's a mom who bought the book, and then afterwards the kid read it, and the kid, who is a typical kid, said that, wow, I want to be friends with Doobiedoo, I want to go to his school and be friends with him. So they instinctively, you don't care about, they don't see it, maybe they do see it as weird, but they don't really care.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
thing
you know what
is
I
that
mean?
treating the other people badly is a thing you learn from your parents.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Oh, and we've been actually been picked up by professionals like therapists, and the latest one was a dentist that was really uh, for me, like a dentist, really. So, and then we were talking like, okay, we find it interesting. Okay, turns out she knew a dentist group, a group of dentists whose patients were children with autism, and she said that she's
Oh.
gonna share it with this group because because she thinks it would be helpful on how to deal with the patients, because a child with autism would not be able to articulate that actually they have sensory issues, like they don't like, it's not like, going to the dentist is struggle enough for a normal person, right?
Yeah, it
But the
sucks.
person with yeah, exactly, right?
No offense to any dentists listening to this right now.
So a child with autism would have sensory issues, like of course they would like the taste, but it's they don't like the texture, they don't like the sounds. Like for us, the drill sounds are irritating and scary enough. It's multiplied even more if you have sensory issues. So we were happy, like, oh, really? Yes, please pick up the book and share it to them by all means. So nurses, pediatricians,
Also from a fellow PWD.
yeah, who is not autistic, but he has a different kind of disability. He said that he was able to relate because he experienced almost the same experience, like going to school, growing up.
Right.
So he was happy that there's a book like this that talks about the struggles that they went through, and what can you do to help.
That makes sense, right? Because a disability is a disability. So like
Right,
people will be able to relate even if it's not exactly the same.
right.
I think also that's one of the more powerful things about Doobie-Doo Asks is that even though you mentioned that you said it because of the way it's treated in our country, it is universal. I think if you go international with it, it would still be relatable.
I
Oh,
hope so, yeah. Yeah.
so congratulations on Doobie-Doo Asks. Let's move on
Thank
to
you.
Carnal Tales, which is a complete 180 from.
Exactly.
Indeed. It was.
So,
Totally different.
so
Like
what is Cardinal Tales all about?
yeah, I was just going to say, like, at conventions, and they see our table, and then side by side, they're like,
Like polar
There were-
opposites.
people would be like, yeah, we know it's totally different. Sorry, what was the question?
What is it all about for people who don't know?
Carnal Tales is basically the main storyline. Colonel Banahaw, the graphic novel, is about a twin brothers. So one is a singer in a rock group, and the other is a priest. And then they go home to their hometown, a sleepy little town nestled in the mountains. And when they do go home, strange happenings occur, murders, eviscerations, and the story unfolds. Is it because of the twins? Did they bring something with them? or what's really happening here. So it has a sister, an offshoot, a sister publication occurring in the same universe. Carnal
Carnal
Tales.
Tale. Yeah.
It's featuring the same character, but it's a standalone.
Mm.
Carnal Tales is more on all ages thing, like Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark? Where the Lola of the twins are still kids here.
Mm.
So the Lola of the twins would, sit them by her feet and tell them stories of Manananggal and Aswang, because these are the stories that my own elders or my own grandmas, grandpas used to tell us when we were young.
Where are you from, Bambi?
My mom's hometown is the setting of Carnal, Liliw, Laguna. But my dad is
Yeah.
from here in Manila.
Oh, you, Olan.
I'm from Manila.
You're from Manila. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm only from Manila.
Yeah, me too. I'm from Manila. But creepy things happen in the Philippines, people.
Yes,
Mm.
even if you're in the city.
Even if you're in the city, yeah, especially in the early 90s,
Yeah,
when
early
there was a lot of
when it was blackout season,
Mm.
when there was a lot of power outages, and power outages were like a daily thing. There were aswang sightings, manananggal sightings here in Manila.
Mm.
There was a mass hysteria of.
And more because of when I grew up, I don't know, my guardian was my lolo, my
Yeah.
grandfather, because my parents were, my father is an overseas worker and my mom is usually works in Manila. So the one who watched over us was my grandfather. And my grandfather, during siestas, he's like the story here. he would tell us stories about his experiences, like because he rides his bike. And even at a younger age, we're in our city is more or less farm pa lang, and then there was still no lights. There was just few houses. He would ride his bike to work. Going home from it was already dark, and then he will tell us those scary stories about, oh, I've seen besides the mga war stories wherein he was so angry at us because we were worshipping Japanese toys.
Japanese.
Because when I collected Japanese toys before. And then anyway, ayun.
Labo.
And then he was he was our storyteller when I was young.
Yeah. People get mad at the dumbest things. Diba? Right. So why do you think it is? What do you think it is about these kinds of stories that we keep coming back to them? Because like if you take a look at the Filipino comics that are out right now, I would say that then they don't treat them the same way, but there's a lot of things that treat it
Yeah.
that really go back to that kind
Yeah.
of imagery and storylines. Yeah. So what do you think it is about that resonates with us still?
I think it's well, for me, speaking personally, it's more of an attempt at preservation, because we don't do that anymore. Like the kids don't gather around to listen to stories anymore. So, they're watching TikTok, they're watching YouTube, they're, watching Netflix. So they're more familiar with like Harry Potter and Spy Family, stuff like that. So for me, it's more of preservation of the stories, that it's a personal reason. It's a preservation of stories that my grandma and grandpa used to tell us. So why do creators, comiqueros, come back to it?
I
Because
think more or less it's nostalgia.
nostalgia, yeah. And also to promote something that's really Filipino. because we do have superhero comics, but superheroes are inherently American. So,
Yeah.
you want to promote something of your own, something from your own culture. So we keep coming back to that.
What else do you guys have to plug before we wrap up?
Mm,
You can talk about Diwata if you want.
Yeah, so Carnal Tales has been picked up by Diwata Comics, an LA-based startup publishing company. So this is Carnal Tales Cautionary Tales 1.
And the
And
recent ones.
the recent one is Apparitions.
Because
So
for-
basically, it's the same as the local one, but the difference is, of course, we have to explain all of the cultural nuances for
Mm,
an American and other foreign readers.
Was that extra
Also,
work? Was that a lot of extra work for you to do the
No,
explanation?
not
No.
not really.
not so much.
Mm.
No.
Okay.
Not so much.
Mm.
Because
So aside from Colonel Tales, he also illustrated Carmina, the flagship title of Diwata Comics. You can check all of the titles out at diwatacomics.com.
currently they're having a new project called New Icons, wherein they feature local
Prominent personalities in the film community. So
Oh, okay.
they make trading cards. It's called New Icons. So
they ask for character designs and
Yeah.
stories that they would want to design.
basically it's like, what would you look like, or what would
Mm.
your powers be if you were a superhero?
Mm.
So they collaborate with the actual person. Like one person is a nurse who I think he did like real heroic stuff during the pandemic.
Mm.
So they collaborated with him and asked him, "Oh, what powers will you have?" And then they asked Roland to design the character based on how the person described.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Right. The- I think that's awesome for you guys, and it's awesome that Doobiedoo is getting so much love, so much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think it's the kind of thing that comics are actually really best suited for. Because
Exactly.
right? Because I feel like
Exactly. Yeah.
something that personal,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And-
There's a reason why I could have written a memoir, novel form, but I chose to write it to make it a comic book because it's accessible. Anyone from any age can read a comic. Whatever background you're from, whatever social status you have, you can. Comics are very accessible. That's what yeah, exactly. That's what
Yes.
they're for.
Mm.
They're not just for telling superhero stories. They're telling all kinds of stories.
It's true.
There's lots of genres nowadays.
The first thing any kid ever learns to read is stories with words and pictures put together.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that's what
Yes.
makes it the perfect medium for something like Doobiedoo.
Yeah.
Doobiedoo asks. Thank you to the two of you. This has been a very pleasant conversation. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Anytime.